All right, what is up, you guys? Sage here. Today we're going to be defining terms or discussing terms rather, right? Because who am I to define terms? Using resources such as AI and other various sources, I was able to come up with two things that I want to discuss today. Perhaps not a very in-depth discussion, but worth answering. Umbuzo othi kuphi Embo? um Dala nsiva nami kuthiwa ye masibuyeleni Embo, masibuyeleni Embo, kupapho. And then you hear of this figure kuthiwa Qamata, usonini nanini, um who we are referring to. So usonini nanini can be translated to a Xhosa Nguni term for the word creator, the creator or the one who began all things. And then Embo, so this is a definition that I got from ChatGPT, but it also tracks with other sources that I had glossed over. This just put it in a very nice, concise format, and that I believe it would be best to deliver to you. So in Xhosa, the term Embo has a deep cultural and historical significance. It generally refers to, number one, ancestral origin or the original homeland. Embo is used to describe the ancient or mythical place of origin of the Xhosa and other Nguni speaking groups. It signifies a spiritual and ancestral homeland, not just a geographical location, but a concept tied to an identity, a heritage, and the beginning of a people. Okay, so that that right there, like tell us in Embo. The idea is not just let's go back to a certain spot. It's let's return to ourselves. Let's go back to factory settings. Let's return to ourselves, not lose ourselves. Perhaps in the ways of the world, you could take it as let's not lose ourselves in the ways of other people. Because ininzi into ekhoyo apha kulo mhlaba, zininzi into esidibana nazo, kodwa umntu xa sithi masibuyeleni Embo, it means let us return to what it really is that matters truly. Let us return to that place of quiet, of still, of oneness with ourselves, with our ancestors, and therefore with Usonini, with Ukamata, with God, and the thing that sparked the curiosity with Uembo, it was specifically I heard it used by Upenyo when he made a video on basically the origin of Xhosa people, something like that, or the historical origin, whatever the case is, in which he attempted, and I do believe he also used some sort of perhaps generative AI and other sources to cultivate a little bit of something that hopefully made a little bit of sense, and it did, because it also coincided with things that I've heard spoken, because I'm a very curious person when it comes to this topic, but also research that I've done in the past. It also connected with. So um, very very happy that is a conversation that's being opened up by him with a much larger platform. But then kukho specifics angazuza understand yena because ngumZulu at the end of the day. And so umzekelo yena ebethetha ngoba kukho abantu abathile basembo, like umzekelo, he talked about, no, there's Xhosa people, ne? And amaXhosa bavela kuXhosa owazala u I don't think Xhosa was Nkosi Yamdu directly. I think there was a person in between who eventually gave birth to Utata or Chawe, even Chawe, no Tigha, no, and them and so on and so forth. And then that person had a brother, Senzangakhona. Senzangakhona, wayne brother. I forget the brother Senzangakhona. So yeah, it's Xhosa, Nkosi Yamdu, Senzangakhona. Senzangakhona wazala uChawe, uGqirha, and then there are a couple of other brothers, but these are some of the head brothers that I'm talking about. The reason why Gqirha and Uchawe are so prominent in my mind is because they were like the first sons, and Gqirha was actually the very first son from the head wife, right? And so he Ibinguye Nkulu, basically Ibinguye, who is meant to take over the kingdom and to be to take over the reins after his father Nkosi Yamdu. but Uchawe overthrew him, with the help of a couple of his brothers. He leapfrogged not just him, but there was another brother in between them. Anyway, I say that to say, it's a great storytelling, great following of the history, understood by me, coincided, made sense. But mistake layer that I'm sure he didn't even understand the significance of is he was talking about certain people from a certain land, and then abanye abantu and then uthi no, but then le particular people ngabasembo, they live, and he's just in part by some place called Embo, and I was like, I got that. Hey, song esibuyele Embo nje. Akho yona. Akho umuntu ongabuyeli Embo. Yabo ungumntu. Xa sithetha ngabantu, sithetha ngesintu. Abantu babuyela Embo, sivela Embo. Yabo. And so I thought it fit to kind of define the term in its own video as well, because I spoke about it in my last video, in which I talked about you can't be Xhosa and Christian at the same time. And this one I talk about the term Embo. So yeah, like I said, historical significance is about returning to a spiritual and ancestral homeland, not just a geographical location, but a concept tied to identity, heritage, and the beginning of a people. Xa sithi kwakungenje kudala, xa sithetha into ezinjalo, we are speaking about ubuyela Embo. We're speaking about returning to who we are as a people. A great example of this is the eye for an eye mentality that you sometimes see in some people going on. People came, they did us wrong, things happened in the past, and then now people are wanting to strip people of their land. They're living in a non-forgiving spirit. They're living in, and I don't think that is a very naturally African idea at all. You know, in terms of I think it's Rwanda, where the leader went to Uganda, or the current president actually had gone to Uganda and united with Uganda to come and conquer and invade his own homeland, overthrow them, and then he became president way back when. And he came back around, and they did this practice where uba umntu uzixelile, if they confess their sins in front of the family, then they would be forgiven. But then for a year they would wear a pink overall, and they'd have to do menial tasks like building work, collecting trash, like community service type stuff. And I heard that yesterday. Robert Hersov was talking about it. I heard that and I was thinking, now that sounds very African. That's a very African form of punishment. We're not going to kill you. We're not going to get rid of you. We're not going to, because we are people of justice. Yes, 100,000%. But we're also a people of reuniting. They like we see into it's not really an I'd say acceptable thing to kill another person. Like killing people isn't really like a thing that is ifikaqala okanye that is law. Like death penalties and that. Like you could commit the most atrocious crime, and but back then villages were so small, and like I know you and I know that that's not you. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe or whatever the case may be, but killing is not something that we smile upon or that we take very lightly. Spirits are not something that we just take very lightly. And so for you just finding death penalty, stuff like that, to be even thought of, or the a lack of forgiving, is completely not a part of our identity, our heritage. So all that being said, again, we're discussing this concept of Uela Embo. It's deeper than just a place. It is a people. It is a state of mind. It is a oneness with the ancestors. It is a oneness with God. Um, and then let's touch on that second definition, which is the root and source of people. In a broader sense, Embo can mean the source or the origin, where people came from spiritually or genealogically. It is closely tied to the ancestors and plays a role in traditional rituals and oral history. Hence, la nto bendiyitsho ubana I'm sure into ke wayiva uba masibuyele Embo or sivela Embo thina. perhaps in a song, perhaps one of the songs, etc. And yeah, I think it very, very much sums up what that means: the source, the origin, a spiritual context, and identity. Embo is all those things. So let's talk Sivela Embo and Sifunubuela Embo. We were working to return to origin. And that may mean actually deeper than we're working to return to the original state of Abantu Bokala. It can also, if you peel back the layers, it can also mean to return to God, because the first people were the closest to God, for they had not been corrupted by the things of the world as such. And to return to the source, the origin. What is the origin of all things? What is the origin of all the energy that exists? Energy comes from energy. It comes from a place, So when we return to that, when we return to ourselves, we are returning to a place where we're closer to that which we come from, if that makes sense. And speaking of returning from that which we come from, touch on that now. Let me finish on this. So when someone says Sivela Embo, they're invoking a deep historical, spiritual lineage. Deep historical and spiritual lineage. Okay. And then I believe this is our last slide. Oh, Qamata. What is the meaning of the word Qamata? An African deity, specifically within the Xhosa religion, but namanye amanguni babemthanda uQamata. So where this came from, where the question to seek for this came from, is asking that question, which is, I do know and understand that there was a point in time at which, we spoke last time about uba ungumXhosa okanye ungumntu wenza isintu, your culture is of untu yakwantu. Yabo. um you have a Nguni tribe, you do rituals involving the ancestors, involving so many things, then those will be like your core values will be tied within Sindu. Your basis, your base existence, your base perspective from which you view the world will have a backbone of Isindu. If you're a Christian, then your view of the world will have a backbone of Christianity. Yes, there are many things that overlap. For example, the no killing, treating people right. You know what I'm saying? And that is evident. That is evident from anyone who is known very prominently to be a a proud, well representing Xhosa person. You can think of a Nelson Mandela, 27 years, comes out preaching forgiveness. You can think of a Siya Kolisi, came from the worst background, coming out with a perspective of, nah, bro, everyone struggles. My struggle was just different from everyone else's struggle. But oye, la pain that they felt was equal to the pain that I felt, even though um, if we extract both pains, mine may have been greater, but I was also harder because I've been through that kind of pain and worse for a more consistent period of time. This may be their first pain. So to them, it hurts as much as my first pain hurt me, regardless of the magnitude. If we were to make that as an example. And so if we take those two people, né, and we look at that and we say, wow, has no well, when you look at someone like that and we compliment them, we even say it ourselves without even consciously thinking about it. "Maybe ayingumntu ubani bani," because they're really, we're talking about the compassion, we're talking about the deep reflectiveness, the thought, the consideration, all those things. And we think of those things as deeply representative of who we are and of our backbone, truly. And obviously, just because of Mkosa doesn't mean you're perfect, even though but yeah, just because you come from a certain background doesn't mean you are perfect. There are bad apples everywhere. There's bad people. in all contexts. But I believe that the center, the core, xa ungwasembo, and you're living as such, then it is a very peaceful way that you tend to live in. So we said that before there was a time where, fine, people were hurt, and before they were hurt, there there is colonialism. It comes in, it comes with this concept of Christianity. Not to say that Christianity is a negative or bad thing. However, it is not ours, if that makes sense. It's not a negative or bad thing, but it did not originate Kwantu. Otherwise, it would be called ka something. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I know I'm being facetious, but the point that I'm trying to make is, yes, it may have a lot in common with being of origin and etc. Similar concepts, angels, ancestors, whatever. Just ways to get closer to the source is the main point. Either way, there's a saving grace, there's a savior, and there's a specific like one thing that definitely not sets Christianity apart, but is very particular to it. Is the I am the only way, I'm the only light, etc. Um, I guess Islam also says like a similar message. Um, yeah, which that's why those two constantly clash the entire time, whereas they have more in common than they do have different. But anyway, that's beyond the scope of this. This right here is just to say that came with colonialism. It's not ours originally. So the question that I had was, well, what is? If that's not it, what is it? What? Who did my before any of this confusion, before we moved from source, before sisuke kangaka Embo, before we were so distant from the origin, what was that origin? And what did we seek to be? What did inner peace look like? What did do you see what I'm trying to do? You see the line of thinking? And so the question is, who or what did we call God? Who was our God? It makes it sound like I'm talking about a completely different source of energy, but there is only one. There can be only one. And so what did we refer to this as? Because you'll notice that we all burn sage, we all burn incense, we get on our knees, we bow, we get into these frantic states. Sometimes there's crying, sometimes there's screaming, sometimes there's but there is this deep intrinsic thing. There is a God-shaped hole in all of us. And so my question was, what exactly did we fill that God-shaped hole with before we were told that what we are filling it with is incorrect because it's not in English, even though it's talking about the same thing. Um, Qamata is the African deity of the Xhosa religion. In Xhosa traditional religion, Qamata is regarded as the supreme deity or creator god. He is believed to be God who created the world and watches over their ancestors. Qamata is central to the cosmology of Bantu-speaking peoples of southern Africa, especially the Xhosa. Qamata is typically associated with the sky or the heavens. Um, Ancestor worship and communication with the spirits often involve invoking Qamata. Um, Not always personified, often seen more as a divine source or presence, a divine force or presence. Um, so yeah, that kind of answers that question at least a little bit, in terms of there is a lot more research to be done. There's a lot more looking into. There's a lot more digging to be done. But as these questions do come up for me, I will look for different sources, and I will try to answer them. If you want to present more questions to me, I'm more than happy to do the research because it interests me very much. And I also want these things documented. I want there to be some sort of material speaking on this, you know Because I actually tried to research the other day, Upi Embo, and the things that came up was literally the only thing that came up was another person asking that same question. And so I took it upon myself, let me actually go into this, let me research this. And so hopefully this will help you better answer the question, bakuphi embo. Xa sifuna embo, xa sisivela embo, what is it exactly that we're talking about? We're talking about origin, we're talking about the spiritual, cultural, the source of the people. Sibuyela kule nto sivela kuyo. We're returning to that from which we came. That is embo. And then we talk about Qamata. Qamata is the Xhosa / Nguni speaking people's word for that which we came from, essentially, for the force, the source, the origin of all things, God, Allah, um, Yeshua, Jehovah, whatever you want to call him. That, whatever that force, that thing is that we came from, Xhosa people, my people, maybe your people watching, call that Qamata. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And I know it's a bit uh, not necessarily off topic, but it is kind of off topic from our usual context. This is a business / self-improvement, but business and self-improvement is nothing without the spiritual content, in a spiritual context to that self-improvement. In what direction are you improving? What is the core and the purpose of your business? If it is going to be a godly place fueled just by chasing worldly things, then I'm afraid even if you do get far, it'll be very empty. Your success, your conquest, and whatever else may come with it will be very, um, perhaps uncomfortably lived, but definitely very empty. And so if you did in fact enjoy today's video, please do hit that subscribe button. I have been Sage, standing on business, signing out.